Close your eyes for a moment and imagine you are standing in the center of a room. It is dark, save for the faint glow of a handheld device in your palm. The air is heavy, and the silence is so absolute it feels like a physical weight against your chest. You lean forward, your voice barely a whisper, and ask the question that has become the digital age's ultimate ritual. Is the ghost here in the room with us? This isn't just a line from a horror movie. For millions of people across the globe, this phrase is a bridge. It is a psychological trigger that strips away our modern logic and leaves us vulnerable to the shadows. In online communities like the Are Ghosts subreddit, over 1 million people gather to dissect the same terrifying possibility that the veil between our world and the next is far thinner than we dare to admit. We are obsessed with finding the other, but sometimes the other is already standing right behind us. To understand why this question carries so much weight, we have to look at the evidence that emerges when we least expect it. On Halloween of 2024, a couple visited the hallowed, blood-soaked fields of Gettysburg. It was a typical trip. Random snapshots of the landscape, the rustle of dry leaves, the weight of history. It wasn't until they returned home to Ohio and scrolled through their photos that the atmosphere shifted. In the background of one image was something that shouldn't have been there. A figure, a shape that defied the logic of the lens. Their only response, shared with the world in a moment of visceral shock, was, "UTS, is that? Gettysburg is a land of residual trauma, where 50,000 souls were torn from their bodies in 3 days. But evidence of the unseen isn't limited to battlefields. Travel south to the Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana, a place where the history is as thick as the humid air. Here, visitors report the sound of scratching on closet doors, lights that flicker in empty rooms, and the chilling sensation of furniture being moved by invisible hands. One visitor recently captured a photograph near the pond on the plantation grounds. In the slats of a weathered fence, a face appears to stare back. Some call it pareidolia, the brain's desperate attempt to find order in chaos. But for those who have stood on that soil, it feels like a weird coincidence that a Dracula-like caricature would manifest in one of the most haunted places in America. The Myrtles is haunted not just by spirits, but by the memory of Chloe, a woman whose story of pain and tragedy still echoes through the halls. When you ask if she is in the room, the answer often comes in the form of an eerie feeling that lingers long after you've left. But the way we talk to the dead has changed. We no longer rely solely on flickering candles or mediumship. We use the spirit box. This device scans radio frequencies at high speeds, creating a chaotic stream of white noise. The theory is that spirits can manipulate these fragments of radio to form words, but there is a specific terror that comes with this technology. In the digital world, the most feared response isn't hello or go away. It is a deep guttural voice that whispers 2 words, behind you. This response is a masterpiece of psychological horror. It confirms that the entity is not only present, but aware of your physical position. It triggers an evolutionary fear, the vulnerability of the back, the space we cannot see. Recent updates to paranormal simulations like Phasmophobia tried to replace these mechanical, chilling voices with clearer excerpts from radio broadcasts. The community's reaction was immediate and visceral. They hated it. They called the new voices cringe and less scary. We don't want clarity. We want the ambiguity of the static. We want the uncanny valley where a voice sounds almost human, but not quite, because that is where the true terror lives. If you want to find the heart of that terror, you must go to Ireland, to the ruins of Muckross Abbey, founded on a site known as the Rock of Music, after a vision of ethereal melodies. The abbey's beauty belies a history of staggering violence. In 1652, the forces of Oliver Cromwell descended upon this sanctuary. Monks were hunted, captured, and murdered within these stone walls. The trauma of that ethnic cleansing left a mark on the land that hasn't faded in 4 centuries. The legends of Muckross are the stuff of nightmares. There is the ghost of the Brown Man, a story of a woman who followed her missing husband to the abbey graveyard only to find him feasting on the flesh of a fresh corpse. There is the story of the ancient yew tree in the center of the cloister, said to be as old as the abbey itself. Local lore says the tree will bleed if its bark is cut, and those who dare to harm it will not live to see the year's end. In the 18th century, a recluse named John Drake moved into the ruins. He lived there for 11 years, sleeping in a box made of coffin planks tucked into a fireplace recess. He was a man of mystery, refined and scholarly, who refused charity and eventually vanished into the night without a trace. People still report the sound of shouting and screaming echoing through the abbey at night, a deathly still place during the day that transforms into a theater of the macabre after sunset. Visitors describe being touched by unseen hands and hearing breathing in the empty cloisters. When they ask, "Is the ghost here?" the abbey responds with a heavy, oppressive silence that often triggers physical illness until the visitor steps back into the sunlight. The debate between the believer and the skeptic is perhaps nowhere more visible than at the Waverly Hills Sanatorium, specifically within the Death Tunnel. This 500-foot concrete chute was used to move the bodies of tuberculosis patients so the living wouldn't have to see the constant parade of death. During a recent high-profile investigation, a camera panned past a dark doorway, catching a white cluster of noise. To the believer, it was a figure, a residual ghost of a patient lost to the White Plague. To the skeptic, it was merely digital noise, a reflection of light in a low-resolution 480p video. This conflict is the engine of our fascination. We want to believe that the WTF is that moment in the Gettysburg photo, or the white noise in the Death Tunnel is proof of an afterlife. We want to believe that the face in the fence at the Myrtles is Chloe looking back at us. We find a strange comfort in the behind you response of a spirit box, because it means the universe is more complex than just biology and decay. The question, is the ghost here in the room with us, is ultimately a question about ourselves. We are a species that cannot stand the thought of being alone. We build digital seance rooms on Reddit to share our personal accounts and our blurry crap footage, because we are looking for a narrative to fill the dark spaces of our lives, whether it is the bleeding yew tree of Muckross, the flickering lights of the Myrtles, or the cold as night husband of the brown man legend. These stories persist because they trigger something primal. They remind us that history isn't just in books, it's in the stone, the soil, and the static. So, the next time you find yourself in a quiet place when the sun has gone down and the house begins to creak, don't be so quick to dismiss that eerie feeling. Don't be so sure that the scratching on the door is just the wind, or that the face in the photo is just a trick of the light. Because in the world of the paranormal, the most terrifying answer isn't no. It's the realization that you didn't even have to ask. The ghost is already here, and it's been waiting for you to notice.